listening to The Stephen Torriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Torriello Show. And you never know where Stephen may go. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. So, got a few things we need to talk about. A lot of things have happened in the last couple days. We spoke last about the LGBTQ and how I think that entire community just needs to drop the T. And look, nothing has changed. Target is still being boycotted. I think they're down $10 billion now. And it seems as if Chick-fil-A is coming to the spotlight now. They hired a diversity, equity, and inclusion executive to run things there, I guess. I don't know. You know, this is a reoccurring issue. And I told you I was going to do an episode about this ESG credit score system that is essentially holding corporations hostage. And this ESG this scoring system is being run by ginormous investment corporations. One of those being BlackRock and the other one being Vanguard. And these people are essentially, they have trillions of dollars in assets. They actually have more liquid assets than the United States government. And they use their investing team. So all your 401ks, everything that you invest. So if you have a 401k or a pension plan or anything like that, these people like Vanguard and BlackRock are the ones essentially deciding where your money goes to make investments. And they decided that they want your money going towards all this crap. And it was signed in the bill by the Biden administration that essentially allows these companies like BlackRock and Vanguard to invest in these things. And a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't even know that that's what's happening. And so that is indeed what is happening. And so what you're seeing is these corporations essentially being held hostage by places like Vanguard and BlackRock, because what they're doing is they're going around and acting like a bunch of mobsters, essentially saying, well, if you're not gonna bring in any kind of DEI program or executive, then, you know, we're not going to be able to invest in you. We're not going to be able to give you the capital you need. It's a nice store you have there. It's a nice franchise you have. It's just a shame for anything that happened to it. But if you do want to be part of the ESG system, then you go ahead, sign here on this dot, and we'll make things happen. But if you do, we're gonna need you to start bringing in some DEI executives and coordinators. That's essentially what's happening, folks. In a nutshell, that's what it is in its simplest form. I'm working on a lot of this stuff. I'm trying to get to the core of this. It's hard because these people at the top, this cabal of people at the top don't want to be known. They know that the conservatives and independent outlets like me and many others like Tim Pool, Bongino, Steve Bannon, all of us are on the hunt for these people to try and find out who they are so that we can expose them. And they don't want to be exposed. So it's hard because it's really trying to connect the dots. It's like trying to create a line diagram, and that's essentially what we're all working on. But we need to do it in a way to where people understand what is happening, and we need to make it in a way to where we can come up with a plan to go against these people, to essentially boycott BlackRock and Vanguard, the most richest, most successful marketing strategists in the world. You know, these companies, like I said, BlackRock alone has $9.6 trillion in assets. And so they essentially own the world. They got enough money to buy a country. It's definitely going to be an uphill battle for us, folks. I'm just going to tell you that right now. The more I read into this, the deeper it goes. It gets into, and this isn't conspiracy theory, folks. This is real. This is happening. This is real life. It's not conspiracy. This has been happening for many years now, but they're just starting to become more comfortable in coming out with it. They do not hesitate to sit on the stage in Davos at the World Economic Forum and tell people on camera that you will own nothing and be happy. They have no problem telling people that they want everyone to drive the same car, the same house, and work at the same place, and we're going to provide all that for you. They essentially, like I said, they got bored of running their own multi-billion-dollar corporations, and now they want to run the world. And this is what's happening. The problem is, like I said, is they don't want to be exposed because they know if the majority of the people are against them, their mission will be unsuccessful. And so they're trying to evade being exposed as what they are. And what they are is Marxists. That is what they are. They want to institute an entirely new way of living for everybody, and they want to be the controllers of it. Okay? Like I said, they'll give you a new car, they'll give you a new house, they'll give you free stuff, but they're going to be the ones that are allocating all this. So it's going to be them that has a different car, a better car than everybody. It's going to be them that has the private jet to fly back and forth. Okay? It's going to be them that lives in the multi-million-dollar mansion. This is what they want. So although having a free car, having free stuff, having a free house, and having all your bills paid for and living in this perfect utopia like they're promising may seem like a utopia, but at what cost? Is that worth your freedom? Is that worth your liberty? No, it's not. No, it's not. That's essentially what they're trying to do. So that's as far as I've gotten on that. I just wanted to, we are going to talk more about it. I'm working on it. It's going to be a deep show. We're going to get into all the details. What money is being spent where, who's behind it, who is the head of these cabals, and so on and so forth. And so that is what I'm working on. I'm just trying to get the details ironed out because I want it to be as crystal clear as possible. So that just like the boycott against Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch and Target, just like those were successful, we need to be successful in this mission, folks, because this is it. This is the uphill battle we're talking about. The Target, the Anheuser-Busch, and now Chick-fil-A, these are small battles that we are winning, but they're small battles. Okay, the war on culture, the culture war, the war on freedom, the war on speech, the war on liberty, the war on our society and our fundamental and foundational principles, that war is being waged by BlackRock and Vanguard and that entire cabal at the top that's trying to run all this. I want it to be crystal clear when we do start talking about it. So we're going to get into that maybe on the next episode, and we are going to get to it because I feel like it's extremely important. However, today's show, I want to talk about this high school student. A high school debater says she was warned not to bring up Trump in a tournament, deemed it inappropriate. So a high school student is calling out the National Speech and Debate Association for alleged censorship after she says a judge at a recent tournament warned her not to bring up former President Trump because it would be inappropriate. The allegations come after James Fishback, the founder of Incubate Debate, told Fox News Digital in an interview that the NSDA, the largest debate group in the country, has been overtaken by a woke ideology.
Silencing free speech has become all too common at schools across the country as professors and students crack down on conservative viewpoints. But now a troubling new report suggests that high school students are even having to censor what they say in debate club, of all places. A forum designed to teach kids how to think critically, reason out an argument, and persuade people with civility. The debate club experience can be vital. At least it was for Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Listen here.
I learned how to reason and how to write, and I gained the self-confidence that can sometimes be quite difficult for women and minorities to develop at an early age. I have no doubt that of all of the various things that I've done, it was my high school experience as a competitive speaker that taught me how to lean in despite the obstacles, to stand firm in the face of challenges, to work hard, to be resilient, to strive for excellence, and to believe that anything is possible.
Well, a new report claims that debate judges are setting ground rules that conform to one political ideology, setting up an automatic loss for debaters who are on the other side of that. Our next guest is blowing the whistle on all of this. Let's bring in James Fishback. He is the founder of Incubate Debate and a former high school debater and debate coach. James, good to see you. You wrote about this in the Free Press. in which you said that debate judging has become intolerant of certain ideas. You wrote, quote, "The decline has continued from a competition that rewards evidence and reasoning to one that punishes students for what they say and how they say it." What's going on here?
It's really, really troubling, John. I couldn't agree more with Justice Jackson in her remarks earlier. High school debate taught her, it taught me, it taught Justice Gorsuch, Senator Warren, so many people about self-confidence, presentation, being able to lean in. And the problem today is what Vivek talked about in an earlier segment, which is viewpoint censorship. What happens, John, is that before these debate rounds, judges share what are called their paradigms. These are online blog posts that detail their own political ideologies. So before the round, the student knows that they're being judged by someone who is, quote, a Marxist, Leninist, Maoist. And that's not an exaggeration. Those are the exact words of the first judge that I bring up in the Free Press essay, who tells students right off the bat, if you argue for capitalism or that Israel has a right to defend itself, you will lose. No questions asked.
Yeah, in fact, all of that is posted, according to your article, on a website called Tabroom. And here's what that judge said. Lila Lavender is her name. She said, quote, "Before anything else, including being a debate judge, I am a Marxist, Leninist, Maoist. I cannot check the revolutionary proletarian science at the door when I'm judging. I will no longer evaluate and thus never vote for rightist, capitalist, imperialist positions, arguments." Shubham Gupta, it's called for number 3, in their paradigm said, if you are discussing immigrants in a round and describe the person as illegal, I will immediately stop the round, give you a loss with low speaker points, give you a stern lecture, and then talk to your coach. I will not have you making the debate space unsafe. You say that's exactly the opposite of what should be happening in debates, that the spaces should be by their very nature unsafe.
Absolutely. And by safety, we can't let them hijack that word, because what we really mean is we mean free speech and open debate. That's what the ideas that set this nation into motion. And that's what teaches young people the best of debate. That's about bridging the divides. If you have a certain view about gun control or immigration or federalism, you ought to be able to stand up and argue that view on the merits, on the evidence, and not be shot down before you walk into the round. To think, John, that a young 13-year-old girl would utter the word illegal immigration in a debate round, that judge and many others like him would stand up, interrupt, give her the loss, and then humiliate and lecture her is appalling, it's un-American, and it's antithetical for what debate stands for.
I mean, illegal immigration, that's an accurate term, because that's exactly what it is. How widespread, James, is this in debate clubs in schools across the country?
So I would say this. This is not necessarily about, if you look at it just from the number of judges who have problematic paradigms to the total number of judges, that's going to portray this as not being as widespread. It's going to be a very low percentage. But Lila Lavender, who you brought up, John, she was the 2019 National College Debate Champion. Her words, her opinion matters. So when she tells students that I'm a Marxist-Leninist and don't contradict me, what ends up happening is they listen to her, and it creates this culture of fear. At a debate tournament these days, for those who are debate coaches or debate students, ask yourself, could you stand up in a debate tournament and say, I believe that we should build a wall, I believe that we should, that federalism protected us from the pandemic and so on? Those views are just not accepted in the high school debate scene.
Yeah, well, I guess you could stand up and say it, but you know you'd probably lose, depending on which judge you drew. James Fishback, what a fascinating article you wrote, and it is a fascinating issue. We'll keep delving into it. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Yep. So we kind of knew this was going to happen. What I think is happening is this generation that was essentially being indoctrinated by the people of the 60s and the 70s. These students are now grown up, and they're starting to find themselves in positions of power, whether that's in government, whether that's in corporations, whether that's in schools, the education system, the finance system. These are the people that were last generation's newly indoctrinated warriors, essentially, the social justice warriors. They're starting to find themselves in positions of power, like as a judge in the debate teams and in government. and school administrators, school board seats, all this. This is an entire generation of indoctrination that is coming to fruition right here, right now. And this is the battle. This is the little battle we're up against. We have to make sure that even though these people are trying to cancel speech and trying to cancel debate, that we, as free Americans, as free people, step up and say no. You cannot have debate if you are ignoring or rejecting dissenting opinions. Okay? There is no debate without free speech, folks. That is just, and it's mind-blowing to me how anybody can think that there is. So to sit there and say in a debate team that there's certain things you can't say and certain things you have to say, that is unacceptable. And even though you can't change the way that these people think, they're always going to think this way. Like I said, they are indoctrinated social justice warriors, okay, of their generation. But what we can do is, as free Americans, say, no, this is unacceptable. This is nonsense. You're not going to sit there and tell people what they can and can't debate on, or what they can and can't say in a debate. Okay, that's unacceptable. As free Americans, we need to recognize that freedom is not free. You have to put up a fight against some of this stuff. Okay, and I'm not saying a physical fight. I'm saying you have to step up and say, and just acknowledge. All you have to do is just acknowledge that stifling speech in a debate is unacceptable. And it's not it's not our fundamental principles. It's not what this country and this nation was founded on. The founders came over here because of freedom of speech. That's why they made it the first thing on the Bill of Rights. They gave people the freedom of speech because they were being controlled. Their speech was being controlled by a tyrannical monarchy. And so they said, you know what? We want our own country. It's not like the founders were giving people the right to free speech. All they were doing was letting them have the rights that were given to them by God. These rights were given to them by God, not government, not some corporation, not a king, not a president, nothing. These rights, the right to free speech, is a right given to you by God. And so that is exactly what our founders set out to do. So I want you to hear for yourself what this student had to say. Here, check this out.
Judges are derailing competitions. Coach James Fishback writes this: at high school debates, debate is no longer allowed. At national tournaments, judges are making their stances clear. Students who argue capitalism can reduce poverty or Israel has a right to defend itself will lose. No questions asked. Here's what James told Trey Gowdy.
We've got to bring free speech back to high school debate. When you can get Larry Summers and Ted Cruz, both of which who tweeted out the article in support of it, to agree that something is this egregious, the kids are stripped of the educational value that I knew from debate. It changed my life, and it's so sad that so many young men and women are going to miss out on this as a result.
Brianna Watley is a high school sophomore and a member of the National Speech and Debate Association. Thank you for joining us today. It's important to get your point of view. Has this been something that you've experienced?
Absolutely. In March at an NSDA tournament, before the round even started, we were debating President Biden's former foreign affairs track record, and my judge warned me not to bring up President Trump as she deemed it inappropriate. If a student like me who's going into debate to have free and open conversations is being censored in this way, that is no longer debate, and the NSDA must be recognized as an organization that is not allowing students like myself to express openly.
Brianna, it's shocking to me. I do think that speech and debate was the pivotal moment for my future. And I think that you feel the same way. This is what the association said, that basically the 47,000 judge paradigms housed on tabroom.com represent the opinions and viewpoints of the individual paradigm authors. And basically, it goes on to say, on each and every ballot, we ask all judges to reflect and remove bias and unfair feedback. But that's not what's happening. Just want to show the viewers at home. This is call for number one here. Lila Lavender, she posted this, that before anything else, including being a debate judge, I am a Marxist, Leninist, Maoist. I cannot check the revolutionary proletarian science at the door when I'm judging. I will no longer evaluate and thus never vote for rightist, capitalist, imperialist positions and arguments. That is shocking to me. So you know, going into the room, that what if you wanted to maybe make that opposite point of view to her, that you know you're going to lose. So then is the idea that you just don't compete at all?
The idea is that you conform to what the judge's ideology is. Next month at the national tournament, the NSDA goal is to have a minimum of 2 to 3 LGBT judges in the final round. I couldn't care less about what my judge identifies as long as they are partial. That is what matters. Students should not conform in any way, shape, or form during a debate. Debate is shaped based off of evidence, not based off of the judge's ideology.
Brianna, do you think that this is just a handful of judges, or is it more widespread?
I think it is a small number of judges, but we have to keep in mind that it's the culture around NSDA debates. We're not allowed to question affirmative action. See, there's a question that was posed last year. How does race-based affirmative action benefit Black Americans? If you notice how the question is posed, you can't challenge the idea that affirmative action actually hurts people that look like me, that during my college application process, it might prove to be a detriment. And that's what's wrong with the NSDA. It's not allowing for two-sided debates where students are open to express their views.
So you're only a sophomore, and I can see you have an exceedingly bright future already, but what will you do in the next 2 years? And did you plan to go to college to debate and maybe even on scholarship?
I don't plan to go to any more NSDA tournaments because of the censorship that is going on, but I do plan to continue debate in non-affiliated organizations that allow me to express my viewpoints and to also hear other students' viewpoints.
Isn't it in debate, wasn't it that sometimes you when you walk in, you didn't know if you had to argue one side or the other?
In the NSDA, you have to debate both sides. But like I said before, when they pose questions that are really one-sided and don't allow for another viewpoint, it isn't debate.
Well, I'm glad that it's been exposed. I'm glad that you've come on the show, and I'm excited to see all you're going to do in your long life that you have ahead of you. Thank you, Brianna.
Thank you for having me, Dana.
Okay, take care.
So there you go, folks. Good for her. Now she's doing exactly what should be done in a situation like this. I guess you cannot check things at the door. You know, a lot of people, and I don't blame you. I really don't. Like a lot of people, especially as just regular Americans, conservatives, especially conservatives, we don't like confrontation, man. We don't like having to step up and do this. We just want to be left alone. You know, as long as the government just has our best interest at heart and they're doing what they need to do, we just want to sit back and live our lives in peace and happiness. That is what we're here to do. Okay, we are here to just live our lives, you know, and pursue happiness, not have to sit and battle what somebody can say and what people can't say. We're not here to battle, and you know that's the conservative way. We don't like confrontation, and that unfortunately is our biggest downside. In the Republican Party, the biggest downside is for the longest time we just weren't fighters. We weren't confrontational. We didn't, we just kind of kicked our feet back and we're just like, yeah, life is good. Life is good as long as the money's coming in, as long as inflation's all right, and you're not taking too much of my money, and government's not overreaching too much, then I'd say we're good. But the problem is a lot of these things were happening over a long period of time, while the Republican Party and conservatives kind of had their feet kicked back, and they were just sitting on the sidelines until now. And then now it's just obvious. That's what it's now that it's out in the open. Now you have conservatives and Republicans pissed off, and now they're starting to speak up. The last thing you want to do is piss off a bunch of people that wanted to be left alone in the first place, because then you're forcing them to do something they normally wouldn't do, and they're essentially, I guess you would say, committing a form of suicide. You're forcing them to leave a life behind that they were living, so that they can start a new life of fighting off this tyranny. And so you make these people come out of their cave, and now they're pissed off because they had to leave their cave behind. They had to leave all their food back in their cave. They had to leave all their belongings back in their cave, and now they're pissed off because now their cave is gone, or they don't know when they'll ever be able to return to their cave. And so, like I said, it's essentially like a form of suicide. Because, you're turning these people into somebody they're just not. They know it's time for them to step up and do what they got to do. And They don't want to leave their cave. They don't want to leave their belongings. They don't want to leave their old life, but they know that they have to in order for their kids to have a country that they had, to leave this place the same, if not better, than when we had it. That is at the end of the day, that's the goal. And so when they see that they're not going to be leaving a country to their kids that is the same or better, then they have a problem. Now you're making them do something they didn't want to do. So my hat's off to this girl for standing up to this and doing what she's got to do. She said she's not going to be going back to the NSDA. But the bad thing is where's all the other students sticking up? Where's the other students stepping up and saying, yeah, I don't want to be a part of this either. That's kind of the issue there that I have. And that's kind of what we need. We got to fix. That's the problem here. And you know what? Speech and debate is so healthy because if you've ever debated anybody, I always suggest what you should do in debate is debate the view you don't agree with, because then that kind of opens you up to a whole new world of information, a whole new outlook on things. And so I actually think it's healthier to debate the side you don't agree with. And so debate is extremely healthy. It's not, unfortunately, it's like there's no debating now. And that's apparent based off of what we're seeing right now in this situation. There's no debate. You can't debate. You have to abide by the language and the rules that we set. You got to live in our echo chamber. You can't say things that are going to upset anybody. You can't say things that are politically incorrect. You can't say things that are going to hurt people's feelings. You can't, it's like, it's so bizarre, the society we find ourselves in. And personally, I think it's just because we've had it good for so long. The American people have had it so good for so long that we actually took everything for granted. And, now we're starting to realize that freedom and liberty really isn't free. And so sometimes it takes some fighting for. All right. So on to the next subject. This stuff is driving me nuts, folks. It's driving me nuts. So Trump rips Kayleigh McEnany, which is his former press secretary, as milquetoast. McEnany over poll numbers. This stuff is driving people nuts. If you are a Trump supporter or you planned on voting for Trump, this is really hurting him. Everybody I talk to about this issue, they say he's got to stop with these attacks. He's got to stop with these personal attacks. He's making everything personal. It's just not good for him. And honestly, I have no idea what he's doing. I don't. I really don't, man. He's turning a lot of people off. I don't know who he's listening to, but he needs to stop and he needs to get back to his old ways. Because certainly, everybody I talk to, certainly there is bigger things to be worrying about than attacking people that don't agree with your poll numbers, man. Okay? So, Donald Trump, if by some far chance you're hearing this and you listen to this, stop attacking people, man. You are attacking conservatives and Republicans and not the media and Democrats and Joe Biden. So you're essentially making enemies from your friends. And that's not good, man. Attack the people that deserve to be attacked. You attack Joe Biden. Attack the Democrats. Attack the people that are actually hurting this country. Not your former press secretary and Ron DeSantis. Okay? Which is weird because he would never listen to anybody. That was one of his biggest flaws, was he would not stop tweeting. People could not tell him to stop tweeting. And he just kept doing it. Now, it's like, I don't know what he's doing, honestly. I don't know what he's doing. I told my wife, it's like almost like he's trying to lose the primaries. I don't know. Anyways, I got an article here from Newsweek. Hat tip to Ayla Slisko, dated 5/31. Former President Donald Trump has denounced Kayleigh McEnany, his administration's White House press secretary, for suggesting that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis may be gaining on him in GOP presidential primary polls. All right, first of all, Ron DeSantis is not going to be able to close this gap, folks. I don't think so. Look, I'm not a pollster. I'm not some election expert, but the only way he's going to be able to close this gap is if Donald Trump keeps attacking everybody on his side. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. But as of right now, I mean, there's some insane lead that he's got over Ron DeSantis in every single poll, which is another thing. I can't believe we're all going by polls again. I really don't. Like, what is the point of these polls? They have been wrong consistently for the last 8 years. And so it's just mind-blowing that we're even having talks about polls right now. And nobody should be even listening to the polls right now. Nobody. No matter what they say. People just need to just go off their gut or just ignore the polls because they're wrong, folks. They're not even close. I mean, really, maybe one or two are close by chance, almost like by guesswork. But for the most part, they've been wrong consistently for years. Trump blasted McEnany in a Truth Social post on Tuesday, calling her milquetoast, an apparent misspelling of milquetoast, which is MILQUETOAST. I didn't even know that. If I were to say milquetoast, I would have misspelt it milk too. That's so funny. An insult for a timid or bland person, and condemning her current role as a Fox News host. The former president suggested that McEnany, who urged him to hold off on announcing his 2024 campaign last year, was a rhino or Republican in name only. I don't think she is. I think McEnany's a star, man. I think she's awesome. She did a great job. She's probably one of the best press secretaries that this country has seen in a long time. I mean, you guys remember she came out with that binder. She had an answer to everything. She was on it, dude. She was on it. There was like nothing this girl couldn't handle. And so it's a shame that Donald Trump's going to go after her like this over some stupid poll number, man. All right, back to the article. During a Fox News broadcast earlier in the day, McEnany said that DeSantis may be closing the gap in Iowa's GOP primary race. Although it was unclear which polls she was referencing, Trump insisted that McEnany had provided the wrong poll numbers while laying into her for supposedly promoting the Florida governor, whom he has taken to calling Ron DeSanctimonious, which I think is an awful name. I think he could have came up with a way better name than that. I really do. I think it's an awful name. I mean, like, this guy's destroyed people's entire careers in one sentence, and he comes up with something like Ron DeSanctimonious. I don't know, man. Quote, this is the tweet he wrote. Quote, Kayleigh Milquetoast McEnany just gave out the wrong poll numbers on Fox News. Trump wrote, I am 34 points up on DeSanctimonious, not 25 up. While 25 is great, it's not 34. She knew the number was corrected upwards by the group that did the poll. The rhinos and globalists can have her. Fox News should only use real stars. I mean, I kind of get why he's upset, man, because Fox News just kind of kicked this guy to the curb like a bunch of idiots. They are clearly going, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, if you're not the direct opposite of MSNBC or CNN, then I don't know what you're doing. Because there is no middle ground here, folks. There is no middle ground. So if you're not going to be opposed to CNN and MSNBC, just be CNN and MSNBC. Why pretend like you're some kind of, middle ground? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make people think that there's some kind of independent outlet, like there's some kind of milquetoast outlet. They're not. They're not, man. They are not sitting on the fence. They are clearly going in for Ron DeSantis. They dismissed Donald Trump. They kicked him to the curb, and they fired Tucker Carlson. They are just making all the wrong moves. I'm sorry. I mean, it's clear that they're losing viewers by the millions. Nobody wants to watch Fox News. And then, once they get rid of, people like Jesse Waters and Hannity, which I'm sure they will eventually, because, people like Jesse Waters, he's certainly not in the middle. I'm telling you, Fox News might as well just go the way of CNN, man. Might as well. It's clear what they're trying to do. So Newsweek reached out to McEnany via email for comment. Shortly before Trump's post, McEnany said during an appearance on Fox News' Jesse Waters Primetime that the DeSantis campaign would argue it had closed the gap by 9 points since we announced in Iowa, with Trump's advantage in the Hawkeye state supposedly falling from 34 to 25 points since the governor announced his candidacy last week. While McEnany was guest hosting the Ingram angle later on Tuesday, GOP Republican Representative Chip Roy of Texas seemingly referenced the insult from the former president. Roy, a Trump loyalist, specifically called the GOP's debt ceiling deal with President Joe Biden milquetoast before asking McEnany if that word might mean something to you, quote unquote. Although it is not clear which poll numbers McEnany and Trump were referencing specifically, a poll released by Emerson College last week showed the former president with a massive 42-point advantage over DeSantis in Iowa. The first GOP primary poll conducted since DeSantis declared his candidacy surveyed Republican voters in South Carolina rather than Iowa. The poll released by National Research Inc. on Friday and commissioned by American Greatness showed that Trump was favored by 43% of likely South Carolina GOP primary voters, while DeSantis was favored by 18%. Trump's apparent feud with McEnany may have escalated in February when the former White House press secretary urged DeSantis to challenge her former boss during a Fox News broadcast, calling him the hottest governor in Republican politics. After McEnany praised Trump on Twitter for his policy remarks during a Tucker Carlson interview in April, the former president suggested on Truth Social that her praise for him was due to collapsing poll numbers for DeSantis. I guess Kaylee is no longer speaking so favorably about Ron DeSanctimonious now that his polls are shot, Trump wrote. Listen, man, I don't like it. I don't like it. Like, I get why he's doing it. I get why he's got to be on the offensive all the time. But he doesn't have to be offensive. He doesn't have to do this to his own Republicans, man. I mean, look, we're sitting good, folks. We got a stacked bench. We got Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. No matter who wins out of those two, we are good. So me personally, I say don't even waste the money. You know, I read somewhere that they're going to be spending over $1 billion just on campaigning between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. $1 billion. Do they know what that could do for these states with the election problems? Like, so here it is, they're going to spend $1 billion on kicking each other's asses with commercials and stupid stuff and flyers and all kinds of stupid emails when they could just go and fix this stuff. Because really, in the end, if you don't fix the election problems that they had in 2020 and 2022, then none of this matters anyways. So here it is, the Democrats are they're sitting back just laughing and watching the Republicans blow all this money, and then they know they got the whole damn thing rigged anyways. So it's like, I feel like this Donald Trump, man, dude, you got to stop, man. You got to stop. You got enough stuff to worry about. I don't know what you're doing, but whoever you're listening to, if you're listening to somebody, which I doubt you are, you need to start listening to someone else, man, because this ain't working. People ain't liking it. We're not liking it. The people ain't liking it. I'm certainly not liking it. So, look, I think you need to switch up your mode here. It would be very easy for him to come out and just say, look, because of all the requests I've gotten from my most staunchest supporters, I'm going to lay off Ron DeSantis, or I'm going to lay off all the attacks on my Republican colleagues. I'm going to lay off the attacking for a while. And then it would be that easy. In fact, I think he would probably get more people on his train if he just showed some freaking sympathy, man. Just show some something. I don't know. But this whole taking everything so personally is just, it's nonsense, man. So he'd be doing himself a huge favor if he just stopped it right now and just came out, apologized to everyone, and said, "Okay, let's start off fresh." And you could still call Ron DeSanctimonious. You know, you could still call Ron DeSantis Ron DeSanctimonious. I don't think anybody would care about that. It's a dumb name, but I think people get it. But when you start going off on people like Kaylee McEnany and then all these other people, it's nonsense. It is nonsense, man. It's very just counterproductive. It's very negative. It's just not good. It's not a good look for him at all. So I just don't understand why he's doing it, man. So Donald Trump, get it together, dude. Get it together. I'm okay with either one, Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump. I'd love to see either one of them as president. We just better pray to God we get one of them as president. I still believe that they're going to be running on the same ticket somehow, but we'll see, man. Not somehow. I know how they would do it. Donald Trump would just have to list his house up for sale in Mar-a-Lago, and he would have to go back to one of his properties in New York. They did it in the Texas with Bush and Dick Cheney. They lived in the same state. Dick Cheney listed his house for sale and went to Wyoming, and then they won the presidency. So it's not like it's impossible to do. Me personally, I think that's the only way that Republicans are going to win this election, is Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis on the same ticket, because you're going to pull everybody, every single Republican, every single independent, and some Democrats with that ticket. And not only that, but you'd have 12 years of conservatism. So it's a no-brainer. If we know it, they have to know it. And if they didn't run on the same ticket, then they must not think this country is as in peril as they say it is. So if they could sit there and tell everybody that this election, if Republicans lose this election, then all this is over, then the country falls off a cliff, and they can't set their differences aside and run together, knowing that that ticket would win, almost guaranteed, then I don't know how serious that you could take them at that point. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I know people want me to talk about the debt ceiling. Listen, folks, I have no idea. I am not an expert when it comes to government finances and discretionary spending and mandatory spending. I don't know anything about it. I'm not an expert, but I will tell you this. The Democrats are extremely happy about it, so that means Republicans got screwed. I wasn't expecting a whole lot out of this fight. I knew it was a battle Republicans are going to lose, because Republicans always lose these battles. I'm almost to a point now as I don't know why anybody expects anything from the Republican Party when it comes to doing any kind of fighting or any kind of courageous move. They're just not that. That's not them. The Republican Party, they're just controlled opposition, folks. That is all they are. And the old party is still in there, like the Mitch McConnells and the McCarthys and the Lindsey Grahams. That's the old school Republicans, the Romneys, the Rhinos, okay? The establishment swamp creatures. They're still all in there. And then you have this new group of fire breathers going in there, like Byron Donalds, Chip Roy, what's his name? Brian Bishop, I think his name is. I mean, these guys are great. So many. Matt Gaetz. You have so many that are kind of filling in the roles of an actual Republican Party that fights for the American people. But I don't know a whole lot about the whole debt thing, so I have no idea really what to say about it. But I will, like I said, I will tell you, most likely the American people are getting screwed. And I'll tell you why. It's not specifically because of this deal, but we are to a point, folks, where it doesn't matter what we do with the debt. It doesn't matter what we cut. It doesn't matter what we do. This country is in a runaway debt train. It just is. There is article after article. And when you look into the truth, it doesn't matter what you do. The only thing that is going to save this country from this spending problem, from this massive issue that they have, which is essentially they're spending more money than they're bringing in, and they're creating programs that we don't need, or programs that are just free giveaways between the corruption, the waste, fraud, abuse, the military, the defense, the foreign money that we send all over the place. There is line after line after line of things that are not right with the way this government is ran. You've essentially had a business that has been run into the ground for so long that there's essentially nothing you can do. And so I know people were expecting Republicans to put up a fight on this and get maybe something out of it, but I'm sorry, folks, they didn't. You're gonna come out. You're gonna hear. I'm gonna go ahead and play you some audio. I'm gonna play you some audio from the establishment Republicans, which sounds just like the establishment really sounds. Talking about how this is some historical deal, and in the end, people look at each other and they're like, "What the hell did they just say?" Like, they purposely do this, folks. They say things. It's like they're trying to pitch a deal. Like they just made a bad deal with your money, and they're trying to essentially sell you on it, is what it is. It's like they're a bunch of con men that they spent your money, they lost it in an investment, and then they're trying to convince you about why that investment was so good. That's essentially what it is. And then I'm going to play you some audio from people that are just giving you the truth. Byron Donalds, Chip Roy, and then you tell me which side is most likely telling the truth. Okay, so you have the one part of the Republican Party that's giving you business as usual, the same thing that's been happening for years and years and years, the same old Republican Party, the controlled opposition, and then I'm going to play you some audio from the other side that actually sounds more like what's happening. And you can tell by the words that they use and the way that they talk. They're essentially telling you this is a bad deal. The American people got screwed, and once again, the Democrats outsmarted us. That's essentially what they're saying. And so I'm going to play you both of those audio clips.
So first things first, to the American people, Washington is doing it again. While you were celebrating Memorial Day, all of our men and women who gave their lives for this great nation, and you were spending time with your family and your friends, this town was cutting another crap deal that's going to put you more in debt with no real changes whatsoever. So the American people need to understand full and well, do not listen to the talking points. Do not listen to the cool phrases that are being thrown out in commercials on CNN or Fox or MSNBC, because Washington is lying again. This bill has no cap in raising the debt, just a date in the future. We have no idea what that number is going to look like. Some people are saying $4 trillion. Some people are saying $3.5 trillion. This bill in year one might cut $12 billion if you just want to be generous. So who here thinks it's cool to cut $12 billion in exchange for $4 trillion? I don't think that's cool at all. This bill actually keeps the Biden baseline intact for the federal agencies. The Republicans in Congress have been saying for months that we need to get back to pre-COVID spending levels. This bill canonizes post-COVID spending levels brought to us by Joe Biden and the Democrats. This bill keeps all of Joe Biden's policy, all of Joe Biden's spending intact. This bill does nothing for the Green New Deal subsidies that are going to cripple our electric grid. So when Americans are trying to figure out that they went and bought this electric car that they were subsidized to buy, but when they plug it in, there's not enough electricity on the grid, that is because Washington subsidized all these Green New Deal projects and nobody stood up to it except for people standing behind me right now. To my Republican colleagues, do not vote for this bill. I'm telling you right now, your voters back home are going to look at you and say, why did you vote for a bill that keeps all of Joe Biden's policy in place, and all you did was raise the debt ceiling? They're going to tell you, why did you not stand up and demand that they go back to the table and renegotiate this deal? These negotiations happened. Listen, in negotiations, you go through it, you figure out what comes out the other side. But now it's time for the Republican members of Congress to weigh in on these negotiations. That is why I am a no. That is why the men and women behind me are no's. That is why more and more Republicans, as they read this bill, they are no's. And I will add this last thing. It's funny that the White House's talking points are very cheery. That the White House is telling Democrats, have crocodile tears, but vote for the bill. It's funny that you have 100 Democrats who are now greenlighting they will vote for this bill. You know why they're going to do that? Because none of their policy is changed and they get to keep all of their spending. And last but not least, if we were going to do something constructive for the country, if Joe Biden didn't want to get rid of his crazy Green New Deal spending, the least we could have done is secure the southern border. Yes, hear, hear. And we didn't do that either. To my Republican colleagues, vote no. Vote no and do the right thing. And let's go find a better deal.
And we are working hard to try to put it back together again this weekend by making sure that this bill gets stopped. I want to be very clear. Not one Republican should vote for this deal. Yes. Not one. If you're out there watching this, every one of my colleagues, be very clear. Not one Republican should vote for this deal. It is a bad deal. No one sent us here to borrow an additional $4 trillion to get absolutely nothing in return. But at best, if I'm being really generous, a spending freeze for a couple of years. That's it. That's about what you get. And frankly, you're going to make things worse, and my Democratic colleagues know it. That's why they're supporting it. That's why they're going around gleeful. Like, there's a reason our Democrat colleagues support this. There's a reason that Mitt Romney supports this. There's a reason that Bill Kristol supports this. It's all the same stuff. There's a reason that our conservative allies are opposing it roundly. The Club for Growth scoring against it. The Heritage Foundation scoring against it. Freedom Works scoring against it. Ron DeSantis publicly opposed. President Trump said he thought we should default rather than pursue this kind of lunacy. At the end of the day, the only person that would default in this town is Joe Biden, unless Republicans default on the American dream by voting for this bad bill. That is why this group will oppose it. We will continue to fight it today, tomorrow, and no matter what happens, there's going to be a reckoning about what just occurred unless we stop this bill by tomorrow.
This is a win for the American people and future generations. Last November, the American people sent a message strongly that they did not support the failed policies and reckless spending of single-party Democrat rule. The country entrusted House Republicans with our vision of a commitment to America to deliver results and rein in out-of-control spending, causing crippling inflation. The Fiscal Responsibility Act is a historic step to restoring fiscal sanity and holding Washington accountable. Since earning the majority, House Republicans have been underestimated by the media every day. We've been underestimated by the media this week, but we will be tireless in keeping our promises and delivering results for the American people.
There is one more thing I wanted to share with you. I just kind of wanted to leave you all with this. I just wanted to leave you off with something kind of funny. So, bad boy Mark Zuckerberg drops his nutsack on jiu-jitsu opponent's head during weekend tournament. Yes, Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, is in jiu-jitsu. And folks, he's actually pretty badass. And so there's bragging on Facebook, and then there's Mark Zuckerberg firing up Facebook to tell his friends and family that he's officially a badass. I got an article here from Outkick, hat tip to Joe Kinsey, and the 30-year-old bad boy social media and Facebook founder announced Saturday that he competed in his first jiu-jitsu tournament on BJJ Pro Tour and took home a gold and silver for his efforts. While it's unclear where this tournament was held, what's clear, according to the BJJ experts at jitsmagazine.com, Zuck actually showed actual talent on the mat. And he does. He does. He kicks this guy's ass, and then he actually kicks another guy's ass. It's not a secret that Zuckerberg had been training in jiu-jitsu. He went on the Joe Rogan podcast and told the UFC color analyst that he's hooked. Quote, there's something so primal about it. I don't know. Since then, I've just introduced a bunch of my friends to it. We train together and we wrestle together, and there's a certain intensity to it I like, Mark told Rogan. And now you have Zuckerberg, who is said to be worth something like 80 to 85 billion, dropping his nuts on opponents' faces in gymnasiums. It's great, man. And then there he is. You guys, I'm not video. I'm audio only. But it's a Twitter video of Zuckerberg actually grappling this guy down on the ground, and he does pretty good. You know, it's just grappling. It's not like UFC fighting or nothing. You don't got this nerd out there punching people in the face, or he's not getting punched in the face or anything. He's just kind of grappling on the ground. That's what jiu-jitsu is. I actually wanted to get both of my kids in jiu-jitsu, because I feel like jiu-jitsu is something that is probably the best form of self-defense you could teach somebody, for the simple fact that it's most of the time, 90% of the time, in any kind of self-defense situation, you end up on the ground. You know, if it is a hand-to-hand combat situation, I feel like teaching somebody how to grapple and get around somebody, put them in a choker hold or put them to sleep or an arm bar, break their arm, whatever it is, I feel like that's probably the best form of self-defense. None of this, going up, the guy's just walking to you with his legs spread so that you can kick him in the nuts. None of that stuff. It's not going to be like a rubber dummy walking towards you. So I feel like jiu-jitsu is probably the best mode of self-defense, because I don't know. I just feel like it's probably most likely the best type of self-defense you can give a kid. Because, listen, nobody wants their kids being bullied in school, and we all hope that our kids go through school every single day with their friends and laughing and having a good time. But we all know that there's just those certain times throughout our school, there's always that one person or that one situation or that one incident where something happens. And look, sometimes you just got to punch people in the face, man. And, I don't want my kids to be bullies, man. And I don't want them to be bullied. And so I feel like jiu-jitsu would be a nice sport to learn, or a nice form of self-defense, because not only I think will it teach you how to grapple and get people in submission, but also it teaches you a lot of self-discipline, how to focus on your body and so on and so forth. So, hell, maybe I might try it. But I definitely want to get my kids involved in something like that. I was talking to my wife about it. I think it would be kind of cool, and I think it would be extremely helpful, especially for girls. If you got girls out there, dads, you're always worried about your girl. I mean, just imagine if your girl can whoop a dude's ass. That would make you sleep a little bit better at night, huh? No, you wouldn't have anything to worry about. Like, oh, yeah, I'm not worried. If he does anything, my girl will whoop his ass. So that's always a good feeling to have. But yeah, so Mark Zuckerberg, the nerd, man, the nerd from Facebook is officially whooping some ass. So if it seems like you've had a good run lately from being locked away in Facebook jail, it's not because you've been good, folks. It's because Mark Zuckerberg has been spending all his time training and competing in jiu-jitsu. Yes, that's right. Mark Zuckerberg is kicking people's asses in jiu-jitsu, and he's actually pretty good. This just goes to show that you can do anything when you have billions of dollars. I mean, when you put your mind to it. You can build a massively successful social media platform, sway elections, and even compete in jiu-jitsu. So, yeah. Pretty crazy stuff, folks. We got a lot of stuff happening. As always, a lot of crazy stuff. I had another article I was going to get into. Did you guys hear about there was like it's called the Silo Residencies, and it's essentially like an underground bomb shelter, but for really, really rich people. I think they're called like luxury bomb shelters now, and they're actually being built all over the country by millionaires and billionaires. And so go figure, when it comes to when everything hits the fan, when the crap hits the fan and we're in nuclear holocaust and the dust settles, the only thing that's going to emerge is going to be a bunch of millionaires and billionaires rising from their underground shelters to reconquer the world all over again. And maybe, just maybe, a lot of those billionaires will get their wish and they'll have their perfect, they could start rebuilding their perfect utopia, and they wouldn't even have to do anything, unless, of course, they are the ones behind all this war, which, I don't know, folks. We know how corrupt the entire thing is. We know how corrupt the entire establishment is. That's what's surprising to me about a lot of these leftists, these Democrats. Democrats, they just vote because I just feel like they're just not in the right time, man. A lot of them vote because it was their grandpa's Democratic Party, the party of JFK, but then the leftists kind of hijacked their party, just like I said about the LGBTQ community and how the transgenders hijacked that community and have essentially taken it over, and now is essentially destroying it from within. Because now you got boycotts going up against LGBTQ, which was never the reason. So they're essentially shielding themselves around the LGBTQ community so that if anybody attacks them, they could just call them homophobes, when really it's just people worried about transgenderism targeting their kids. So kind of the same thing. I'm just kind of shocked about the same people, like the leftists and the Democrats, that have sitting here complained about there being a system, complaining about the system and the corrupt millionaires and billionaires. And, they're always talking about taxing them more and tax the rich. But yet, on the other hand, they're like their staunchest supporters. They like it when Zuckerberg stifles speech on Facebook. You know, they like it when the Justice Department's going out and targeting their political opponents. So it's crazy. It's like they want their cake and eat it too. It's like they hate the system, they hate the corrupt establishment, but as long as that establishment is working for them, then they're fine with it. And so, you know, it's crazy. Like the singer from Rage Against the Machine. Literally the guy that made a band, extremely famous band, talking about how the machine, you know, going against the machine and raging against the machine, was a campaign manager for Barack Obama and Joe Biden. Like, seriously, dude? Like, what world have we entered now, man? Like, we are just in this wonky world where every day is April Fool's, and I'm just waiting for someone to come out with the punchline, man. Just like, oh, all this is just a joke. We were just joking the whole time. Like, that's what I'm waiting for, man. But unfortunately, I don't think it's coming. Or maybe, folks, we are living in a simulation. Ooh, that could be the case. I don't know. Maybe that's what we're going to talk about on our next episode. So, as always, thank you guys for tuning in to today's show. Make sure you share the show with your friends and family. And if you could, leave the show a 5-star review. And tell your friends and family to leave a review. That really helps with the show. It helps get the show out there in the algorithm. Also, you can find the show. You can find me on Twitter. You could find me on Truth Social. You could find me on TikTok. You could find me on Facebook. All of it. You can find me on all of them. You guys can also, you can email me anything. You can email me some questions if you want to get a hold of me, or you want to ask me a question. You can get a hold of me at steventorielloshow@gmail.com. And you just let me know. You could talk to me about anything you want. You guys want some information, or you want me to see something, you got a story you want me to see, send it over. I will respond back. You can get a hold of me. Follow me on Twitter. I usually go bonkers on Twitter once in a while. I usually don't like getting on there, but like I say all the time, Twitter unfortunately is the town square, folks. It is what they wanted it to be. It is essentially a virtual town square. It's like The Sims. That is eventually what they want, folks. Eventually, they want all of us to live in a simulation, like with Elon Musk's brain chip that he's wanting to put in people's brains, which is something else I'm thinking about doing a show on. Which that's getting crazy. That the FDA just approved that, so we're actually going to start seeing people with brain implants from Elon Musk. That's this transhumanism thing is getting crazy. The artificial intelligence is getting crazy. It's going to get wild, folks. Imagine just having a chip in your head and it can like control what you do, like your functions and stuff. Like, it's going to be crazy. So like, you'll have a chip in your head. Like, say if you're depressed and, you know, your doctor's like, well, I can write you a prescription for a happy download. And you go to the pharmacy, which is like it's like a store where you lay back, or it's got like one of those seats from the Matrix, and they just kind of open up your head and they insert a little memory disc, and boom, all of a sudden you're happy. And the doc's like, yep, there you go, all done. And you're just like, all your sadness just went away. It's going to be crazy, folks. You could do like memory erasing. There can be they can erase people's memories. Or they could force implant somebody that's like a rapist or a child molester. They could put one of those chips in their head by force, you know, instead of giving them the death penalty. It's going to be wild. Wild stuff to talk about. There's so much stuff to talk about and so much stuff we're going to get into on our next episode. So once again, thank you guys for tuning into the show. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.